mean, Naruto for sure. Hajime no Ippo. Megalobox is another one. I mean, honestly, I watch anime all the time. I think I tried to find the right balance to make it not cheesy.
This video is about black nerds. Some people act like black nerds is just a contradiction, but being black has never came with a preset personality. And on the other side of things, we usually see blackness being treated as vulgar or violent. Now maybe in recent times it's a little different, but I think all nerds, especially black nerds, know what I'm referring to. Maybe you were a little quiet, a little awkward, or you was just into anime or niche things that most people just didn't like back then. And I think the term black nerds exposes how narrow people's idea of blackness really is. A lot of black kids learn very early on that people expect a certain kind of performance from them, from how you should talk, what you should like. I mean, every kid goes through this, but there's always added layers to it when you're black. A lot of the times you'll be expected to like certain things or act a certain way, and when going against this way, you may even be considered like you're acting too white.
This image right below me doesn't make any sense, because if you're an alt black kid, it doesn't mean that you're trying to be white. This is some weird, white people stuff. And I said, what? You say, you always say something weird, man. You paint your nails, you color your hair. You just want to be, one of them. You want to be one of the ops.
The same way how an unmelanated person would be considered acting black for doing anything less than civilized. So when a black kid is into nerdy stuff, people don't just see the hobby, they see it as like a violation. I fell victim to this a few times. And I think a part that gets skipped over a lot is that black nerds in general will try to assimilate. And it's not all, but growing up, I had joined an anime club, I was heavy into gaming, and I'll be honest with you, I eventually shifted my interest over time. I never stopped liking nerdy stuff, but I just became open to other things as a result of being boxed in most of my life. I could always find myself being able to hang around different groups of people, but I will say, growing up wearing glasses, having braces, and yeah, I had a flat top at a certain point, wasn't the most beneficial style growing up. Blackness often gets treated like a script instead of a human reality. Even when I did change my looks and kind of made my own aesthetic, a lot still came with that. This is why the experience is weird in some black spaces. A nerdy black kid can get treated like they're a fake, or just some whitewashed lame that's just trying too hard to be different, or it's just hard to deal with. But in a lot of mainstream nerd spaces, they can still stand out racially, and they can still get stereotyped. When you're black, it doesn't really matter if you have a 3.8 GPA or a 1.0, you're still black.
I feel like a big part of the black nerd experience is going back trying to watch your favorite YouTubers and realizing just how much racist commentary was throughout the entire video. Like, when did Jen calling Michael Jackson a monkey fly over my head? Huh? Or that one try not to laugh challenge where they just straight up said the N-word? Huh? Black kids really never had a safe space. And I feel like that's why it's so easy for them to be indoctrinated into like the red pill pipeline. Because it was just small stuff in every single video that we could even like explore within like the nerd genre.
Black nerds often end up in this in-between position where they're too white to be black and they're too black to be white. Which is why I really don't agree when some black people start to raccoonify themselves to be around white people when they weren't accepted by their own group. But it happens. A deeper issue is that nerds aren't just their interests, but also their intelligence. One of the most damaging things put on black kids is that this idea that intelligence or special interests are somehow not black enough. And that idea is insane, and I think it's still an issue we see a lot of. Even though times have become more accepting, that idea still exists, and it suggests that blackness is only valid when it fits a narrow social role. We still see black people outside of comedians, rappers, and actors having success, but that's not what's pushed in the media most of the time. The mainstream media still controls a lot of these narratives when black people still have the full range of humanity as everyone else. But when you don't naturally fit into the script, I feel like you start analyzing more or just doing more of your own thing most of the time. And over time, that does build character. You can learn a lot about yourself, about what you don't like and what you do like. In a roundabout way, that's how I built up my own personality. And over time, you just become self-aware of everything. But it can also make you feel kind of lonely because you start feeling like you're not always accepted, or that you have to show up in certain ways or hide certain parts of yourself just to get around. But I'd say that if you still struggle with that, I'm gonna explain why you shouldn't later on in this video. People love acting like nerdy spaces are automatically more accepting because they're outsider spaces. But that's not even true either. I think there's a misconception that people with similar interests are automatically just gonna get along,
which is very incorrect.
A lot of these spaces still reproduce the same racial weirdness as anywhere else, and there will always be little signs of exclusion or stereotyping. There may even be subtle shock that you know certain things or that you don't know certain things, and it's just another box to fit into. So escaping one stereotype doesn't necessarily mean you entered freedom either, which is why the term black nerds is just as bad as any terminology to describe black people. I mean, MBJ was considered a nerd to some standard, but now he's a highly regarded celebrity. It doesn't mean he couldn't still be nerdy, but compared to Steve Urkel, it's just not looked at in the same way.
You know, it's kind of crazy. If you're a black nerd and you end up being attractive, most don't think you're a black nerd for real. And that should be confusing me because what, is nerds supposed to look chopped as f? Are we supposed to look like we don't take care of ourselves? Like, are we supposed to have the aesthetic that we live in our mama's basement? Most of the time, they downplay who they really are because they know if they show their true colors, everybody's going to ask a lot of questions, quizzing them, trying to say that they're doing for attention, or they just try to say, bro, you're weird as hell.
I mean, there's different ways to express yourself. It's different based on how you look and how you act. There's literally a hairstyle called the Super Smash Bros hairstyle, and we already know what I'm talking about. And people will talk about being yourself, but a lot of environments only reward being yourself if it's legible to them. I think black nerds challenge that idea the most since there's so many variations of what a nerd could look like, and it always forces people to confront the fact that black identity is not just one thing. We could have black skaters, goths, gamers, anime lovers, book readers, ones that like to talk about various social topics. Black people are not and never will be a monolith, and black nerds make that impossible to ignore. For some black kids, nerdy interests aren't even just hobbies. I feel like a lot of people relate to these interests because they give them a sense of meaning. Since life as we know it can be very dull at times, a lot of these interests can help with boredom or even fitting in. So when people clown black nerds for standing out or doing something different, they're often just mocking the very thing that helps someone build their identity. The internet has made it easier for black nerds to find each other, so now you can actually see communities and creators blend these worlds together. To name one, I'd probably say one of the biggest being RDC. The whole DreamCon and bringing a bunch of creators and people together really reversed a lot of damage for the 2000s kids, because even though the internet created new pressures of what it looks like to be a nerd, overall there's more freedom within the culture. But I think there's still layers where people will police what is acceptable for a black nerd and nerds as a whole, but you get my point. I think it's really about permission. Like, who has the audacity to just be themselves? Whether that's weird, niche, intellectual, etc. Versus who's getting told they have to represent their race every time they show up as themselves. I don't feel like we have to hold up any image for any black person. While black nerds deal with that tension hard, they're just trying to exist most of the time. I feel like almost every black person has to go through this and get stereotyped in some way. Simply being your true self, including your blackness, allows you to break through these lazy assumptions. Because I know it's a few people out here still afraid to claim their blackness. But with the very limited view of blackness as a whole, even in today's generation, I'm making this video to remind y'all that identity is a wide scale. We all got layers and all that matters. Because every time a black person gets to exist outside of their stereotypes, that stereotype gets weaker, and that goes for any marginalized group. Maybe that's why people have always been worried about black nerds in the first place, and black people in general. Sometimes they rather go against the script than add to it. That's what I meant to say. That's what I was going to say.
Wow, that was so powerful.